Hey Cancer, how are you doing? It's been a while, isn't it? So this video is completely for you. This is all about Cancer. And I don't know if you're watching this because you've got Cancer rising or Cancer sun. I think you'll get a pretty similar experience because this is all about this sort of Cancer energy, full stop. Now, this forecast is a 2-week forecast. It's how I'm going to organize my forecast going forward. So it's new moon to full moon and then full moon to new moon. Now, what this means to you is I'm working in your timing. Like Cancer is ruled by the moon. So this is even more perfectly timed to what it is to be a Cancerian. Now, I've got the new moon coming up. So this is going to start from the new moon in Pisces. It's a fellow water sign. It's in a really nice part of your chart. So I'm going to be charting and looking at the journey that you're going to be taking from the new moon in Pisces right the way through to the total lunar eclipse, which is the full moon in Virgo coming up on the 14th of March. Now, this is quite an important one. This is going to be the first eclipse of 2025 and the start of the spring eclipse season. It's a very, very strong and potent eclipse. And obviously I'll be talking more about that in the actual eclipse one in 2 weeks' time. But for now, I just want you to know that this forecast is taking you on the journey and talking about, I think, what is presenting as a bit of a problem right now. And that is this feeling of a tight pull, like a tight pull of emotional change. It's like a tension. And I think also quite a rebirthing too. So let's bring up the charts now and, have a wander through and try and explore it a bit. If this is the first time you've seen one of my videos, hi, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson. This is For Good Astrology. The whole purpose of this is to, I don't know, explore astrology in a way that can uplift and empower and create a bit more space for you. Because I think when you've got a bit more space to think, then you can come up with your own suggestions. You'll be flying high in your own natural wisdom. So the first thing I just wanted to share, just to make it really, really clear, is we're in this waxing moon phase, going from new moon on the 18th of Feb, working our way to the full moon or the total lunar eclipse on the 14th of March. Now, what you'll see during this time is that the moon is gradually getting lighter and lighter and lighter. So, in the first week in particular, we're still kind of working in these sort of unconscious and in the dark. But there is a sense that we are in a growth cycle. So right at the start, it's time to really tune in, which you're good at, but to tune in to what feels good for you and to be really aware of what you're conjuring up with the power of your feelings and emotions. As we get to around about the 7th, we get to this midpoint where it's kind of equally dark and equally light. It's a change. And so you might find that what you've already created through your emotions is changing the way you're thinking about things. And it's time to kind of discern and kind of reroute a little bit to be able to take purposeful actions up until the full moon. And as we get towards the full moon, it feels like loads and loads of things are coming up and lots of energy is built into your experience. So that's the part of the cycle that we're involved in. It's very much about manifestation and very much about be careful what you wish for and where you put your emotions. So let's look a bit deeper. Now, I just want to show you more of a rational view. Just you can see it, in terms of a diary. Some people like to visualize things like that. So this is going from the new moon in Pisces on the Friday. The midpoint is on the 7th of March, on Friday the 7th. And then the lunar eclipse is on the following Friday after that. So it's Friday, Friday, Friday. Now, I've marked in a couple of important points. Now, obviously for you, you're ruled by the moon. So everything to do with the moon is of great importance. So the new moon and obviously the full moon in Virgo is really, really vital. But I also notice that the Venus going retrograde is going to be creating a feeling of nostalgia. And also Mercury going into Aries is going to be pretty, it's going to be upping the ante in certain respects. And also, I think the sun in a conjunction with Saturn and also a sun in the trine with Mars is also going to create some kind of energy. So I will be talking about those directly as well. So let's have a look more at the chart. So I've drawn up 2 charts, one for the actual new moon itself, and then one a week later around the 7th. where you'll see the moon it has been in Gemini for a while, and it will be getting ready to cross over into Cancer. So if we start in the first week. So we've got the new moon here. It's illuminating, or it's creating the consciousness, the desire to create something new in this ninth house, this area of your chart to do with expansion and adventure, and really being quite independent and following your own route. I really see this as a place of higher learning where, I don't know how you'll engage in learning. Some people do it by taking themselves off onto an adventure, going to different places, meeting new people, and because of that, they are automatically learning, or whether it's more sort of focused around studying. But there is a real strong sort of pull in terms of information and what you know. So this new moon in particular is creating a sense of curiosity, a sense of what don't I already know that I need to know to be able to live, thrive, and feel excited by life. Now, conversely, the total lunar eclipse that's going to be taking place 2 weeks later is taking place in this third house. Now, it's interesting to look at the difference between these. These are polar houses. They're in a polarity. They're in opposition. So the new moon, you're creating ideas about being out there, being expanded, looking at the higher level of knowledge and creating possibilities and space to understand things at a much greater level. And yet the full moon, or the lunar eclipse happening down here, is in a place of what is known, like your local environment, your local work, the local community that you exist within, and the context that you're all living. So for instance, like the agreed morality, the agreed narrative that everyone seems to fall into alignment with. So this total lunar eclipse is going to be highlighting your current experience versus, I would say, possibly the dream experience. This is what I would do. This is more like an ambitious experience to to expand in an exponential way, whereas the total lunar eclipse is bringing you back to where you came from, almost asking you to not move so far. So I really get that in this next 2 weeks, you are sort of in this place of tension and feeling this tight pull around the emotional charge of where you want your experience to be. Do you want it to be known, or do you want it to be unknown? Do you want it to be safe and rational, or do you want it to be slightly wild and irrational and intuitive? Because, the 2 moon placements here are going to be bringing this out. Now, you are moon led, and the total lunar eclipse is going to be setting the scene. I think the eclipse points really bring in a great deal of change, and we'll be noticing that change coming in. Like if you're noticing changes going on in the world right now, just imagine what they're going to be like in 2 weeks' time coming into this eclipse. I always think the eclipses, you can feel them coming in a good couple of weeks before, and then you can feel their energy sometimes for, I think wherever these eclipses take place, they are sensitive points for the whole year ahead. So every time a planet, it goes over this point, there is going to be a reminder of what was created at this eclipse. So whatever's going on is creating some kind of pattern for you to understand your current locality and what it means to you. I mean, you could say that this house is a place of normality, of normalcy, of known, of safety and security and community. Like, it's a safe community, whereas this almost feels like an idealistic and far off, far out community. So yeah, there's the tension in where you want to be, and possibly where you want to be is somewhere in the middle. Now, midway through this, later on the day, on the 7th of March, the moon is going to go over this point and into the sign of Cancer, your own sign. And that's when the energies are going to get really quite intense. Most Cancers I know, when the moon goes through their sign, they are actually, especially if you've got Cancer rising as well. I mean, your emotions are just really just under the surface. It's very difficult to hide them, and the sense of needing to protect yourself is really quite acute. So it's kind of interesting. On the one hand, everyone can see what you're feeling, and yet on the other hand, you're really wanting to tightly guard yourself and protect yourself. Because you feel very vulnerable being so open, and yet during this time. In fact, just leading up to this time, at some point on the 7th, the moon is going to be in in a square to the north node and the south node. And to me, this is really describing the need to be able to understand the positions between the past and the future. And of course, this does really represent the past, and this seems to represent the future, because the past is known. You've been in the past, you've grown in the past, you've learned in the past, you've made friends in the past, you've navigated your local environment in the past. And yet this is, the future experience. There's a lot of energy up here right now. I noticed that as we're coming up to the total lunar eclipse in Virgo, we've got this lovely trine between Pluto and Uranus, really showing you that you can really deeply transform your experience and also create more freedom for yourself. And again, there is a reminder: who are you in the past that allowed you to be free and transformed? When did you start to conform? When did you start to be manipulated by other people's ideas on shame, blame, guilt, and anger? Because when that started, that was when your protected Cancerian shell started to thicken up a bit. And that's when you started to carry the weight. Obviously, the shell weighs quite a bit. That's when you were carrying the weight of other people's judgments and emotions. And, I really think this whole cycle here, this growth of the moon from the new moon to the full moon, this is the choice point. This is where there is a decision to make. And I think one of the decisions you might choose to make is, how comfortable am I to be my true self? Could you take your shell off? If so, if you can't take your whole shell off, is there a part of your shell that you could let down? So I guess what I'm saying is, if you were to release the barriers somewhat, and allow the true you to come out, to be really seen in your true glory with your hopes, your dreams, but also your fears, your failures, the upsets, but really be seen in a completely wholesome way, how could, A, would you do that? And B, could you, what do you think would happen if you were to completely live from your full self with no hiding? Like, the Cancerian energy does like to hide. So yeah, that to me feels like a bit of a choice point here. Anyway, let's just mention a few other things, and then I'll wrap this up. So something else I think that is really important to focus on, and I mentioned this earlier, is Venus is going retrograde now. There's a lot of energy taking place in your chart in this area. Now, this area is going to take on gargantuan proportions over the next year. Starting from the 20th of March 2025, we're going into the astrological new year that will take you from March 2025 to March 2026. That's when the sun goes over this point here at the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. And so this is marking a whole new journey. And during that journey, Venus is retrograde. It's going to go over this point. Mercury is also going to be retrograde, going over this point. Then they're both going to go forwards. You've also got Neptune and Saturn. The North Node has already gone over this point. So there's a lot of activity going on here right now. And so with Venus retrograde, you are in a place of nostalgia. She brings up nostalgia. She gets us really thinking about how we value ourselves and how we are feeling in terms of love and money, usually, because she's all about the flow of goodness into our life. And health as well, I guess, is impacted. We might not, we might be encouraged to pay a bit more attention to our body, and to care for our body a bit more. But for you, the Venus is ruling this part of your chart about friends and networks, and is also ruling this part of your chart about the home. So if she's going retrograde, not only are you thinking about love and money, but there is definitely a pull to reconsider the home and what, I'm guessing, however you're living right now, whatever's going on with your love life and also your finances is going to have a knock-on effect. So Venus retrograde, yes, you might be wistful, you might be nostalgic for the past, you might be realizing what you had right in your relationships before, and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, this is about you finding a more peace at home. And from that, knowing how you're going to be in, in the world of networking and coming out of your home and sort of going a bit further afield, but it all comes back to the security here. So I do think between the 2nd of March and the 13th of April, when she goes direct again, I think you're on a journey of discovery. And again, that's going to have a lot to do with my question to you is, how comfortable are you to reveal all, to peel away the layers, to take off some of your crabby shell, the weight off your shoulders, the weight of the personality, the things that you've hidden yourself underneath? How comfortable are you going to be to reveal the true you, warts and all, even if you do feel vulnerable? What would be wonderful, I think, not to leave you defenseless, but wouldn't it be great if you could find yourself in a state where you feel like you don't have to defend yourself? Like to be able to live day by day, just enjoying being yourself. And I think Venus going retrograde at this point is probably going to help you very much in that. Venus is in your 10th house currently. She is in this part of your chart to do with the woman or man that you're becoming, the person, like, who are you in your life? Like what shadow are you casting? And also, what are you helping others to aspire to be? Are you a leader in your own right? Do you feel like a grown-up? Do you feel like a great example? Are you living your life in such a way that you're inspired? And so if not, Venus retrograde is going to be giving you a chance to identify your visions and values. She's going to be joined by Mercury as well from the 15th, going retrograde. They're going to be going retrograde together. You're going to be realizing that your personal well-being also has a knock-on effect in terms of your career. So, it's not just good to focus on the home. It's also important to focus on it all and find a balance of it. So, yeah, a really, really interesting time. Last thing I want to mention, the 8th of March, when when the sun is in a lovely trine with Mars, that is marking quite a nice time. That's really, really helpful. I think you're going to be feeling a lot stronger in yourself. And then just before we go into the time of the total lunar eclipse, the sun is making a really powerful conjunction with Saturn. It's really making you a bit more serious. And I think showing up where you might want to learn more. I think all of this pondering is creating a thirst and a curiosity to learn more, and a realization that there's a cost to not knowing things. And so anywhere where you felt a cost to not knowing things, I think you're going to pull your finger out and do something about it. So there you go, Cancer. I hope that is helpful to understand some of the dynamics at play during this really interesting time for the moon, from new moon to full moon, in particular to a total lunar eclipse. Wishing you loads and loads of love. And yeah, I hope that you get the sense that whatever tension and tight pull you're feeling emotionally, it's because it feels like your shell is a bit too tight on you, and you need to loosen it a little bit, like loosen the past grips, loosen the past shame, and realize that you need a bit more space, a bit like a snake shedding its skin so that it can feel a lot more at ease and a lot more in grace to itself. So there you go. You're coming into this period of finding grace. If you like this, but would like to know more about your love during this time or your money during this time, then check out my next videos in these links and also the links below. Lots and lots of love to you. Bye for now.